Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to have another look at our 68 Ford here, Project 8 Ball. And what we're going to do, I've got it up on 4 stands. We're going to pull the wheels off and we're going to go over it from end to end and try to make as detailed a parts list as we can so we can start scrounging around and looking for stuff. The only thing that won't be included in this is the engine and transmission. We'll do them as a separate deal. Once I got this sorted out, we'll get this back over into the barn and we'll get the engine and transmission over here and kind of go over it as a separate deal. But for now, we're going to work on the car. So first thing we're going to do is get all the wheels off. Here's all the wheels that were on it, including the spare. So what we've got, I found there's some different wheels here. I've got 3 of these ones. These are Chrysler wheels. So we've got 3 Chrysler wheels. We've got a 4th Chrysler wheel that's a little bit different from this. And we've got one, the very bottom one, I found it on the right front here, of the original small register Ford wheels that like it was born with. So that's okay. I'll end up with a complete set of something. I'll scrounge around. There's swap meets and stuff coming up. These Chrysler wheels, I'd like to find 2 more of them or 4 of something. We'll end up with 4 wheels the same on the car. And as far as tires go, we're leaving that right until the very end because I want whatever space left we've got in the budget. That's what we'll spend on tires. I'm hoping I'm going to have enough money at the end that I can buy 4 brand new tires for it. That's the goal. But we'll see how that goes. Like I said, we're leaving that till the end. I've emptied this thing out and cleaned it up a bit so we can see what we've got. The inside looks a lot better now, doesn't it? Doesn't even smell too bad. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get underneath it and I'm going to make a parts list of everything I need just for the running gear, the rolling chassis. I'm not worried about the body right now. The engine and the transmission, we're going to make a separate list for that once I've got the frame from the other frame from the LTD that I showed you. That's the frame we're going to be working with, right? So we'll get that frame all ready to go, and then we're going to sit the engine and transmission on it and make our parts list for that. Well, we have to get the engine in here on a stand and make sure that it looks like it's going to be okay before we go getting too carried away with it, right? Wow, there's a nasty old patch on the frame, eh? Oh boy. Well, that's how we used to fix them, man. It was a long time ago. That was acceptable back in the day, but not anymore. Nobody would ever certify this now. Now we'll have a look at the back brakes. Somewhere along the line, it had some new shoes and wheel cylinders and stuff put on it, so that's good. That stuff we don't have to buy. I did go ahead, just because it's been sitting, and I bought for like $2 each. I ordered some wheel cylinder kits, so we'll just pop them off and freshen them up, put them back on. I also ordered a hold down kit and adjuster kits for each side. The stuff is so cheap. It's worth getting. The rear brake cables are seized, so I ordered those. I also ordered a gasket and a pinion seal for the rear end. I don't want this thing to leak at all, anything. The rear axle, the control arms, the track bar, they all look good. The bushings all look good in them, so we don't have a worry there. I also went ahead and ordered 4 shocks for it. I checked from the center line of the axle up to here, and this is sitting at pretty much the same height as my white XL convertible, and I put new springs in it when I got it because it was really droopy. Now this one has got these things on it, but I'm not sure how much they're actually doing. I just ordered normal shocks for it. Worst case, If we don't like it how it droops, we can either put some packers on top of the springs. We can buy new springs. I've got a set of original Motocraft air shocks I could put on this thing. I may even have an NOS set of these things I could put on the shocks that we get. These are shocks that actually came with these things on them, but you used to be able to buy a kit. I'd rather avoid having great big fat air shocks or stuff like this in here, because you can see here how little room you've got for the tailpipe to go through. So having just a normal stock shock on there helps a lot with that. We'll figure it out when we get there. But in the end, the easiest thing is for the spring to do the springing and the shock to do the shocking, and let them each do their own job without trying to make the shock do the job of the spring. Have to see if I've got some of these bumpers too. Look at that. That one's rotted off. The one on the other side's probably rotted off, and I bet you the one for the pinion, the pinion hits is rotted off too. I'll have to see if we can get those somewhere. What is a problem is these brake drums. The one on the other side doesn't look too bad, and I have not measured it, I'll say that. But this one here, there's supposed to be a flange on here, and it's all rotted away and gone. It no longer exists. That is one ugly brake drum. So what we'll do is we're going to need a pair of brake drums. That's the easiest way out of this. And lucky for me, I was banging around on the internet, and I found on Amazon, AC Delco Professional. These are the right brake drums for this car, brand new in the boxes. And don't ask me why, on Amazon, they were $21.60 each. I said, what? Okay. And it said they had 4 of them. So I said, I'm going to order 2. And if they actually show up and they're the right ones, I will, I'll buy the other 2, right? They won't go to waste around here. So I ordered them up and they came. Lo and behold, they're the right ones. So I ordered the other 2. They're coming today. And now I went back this morning to check. I don't know if these maybe were returns or something, because now they still have these exact same drums on there, but now they're not $21.60. They're $110. So I got 4 of them for less than the price of 1. Once in a while you get lucky, you know. That was a good score. Next thing we've got to think about in the drive line is this, our drive shaft. So this car originally had a C4 transmission in it, and this is the drive shaft for a C4. The engine that we got came with a C6. So number one, it's got the wrong yoke. That's a C4 yoke. You can see the spline down there. This is a C6 yoke. You can see it's larger, and it's got a larger spline. There's also 2 sizes of forward U-joints, small and large, or 1310 and 1330. And of course, I have one of each. So what do you do about that? No problem. Moog number 359 U-joint. It's a conversion joint that goes from 1310 to 1330. $11. I've got one of those coming. And I don't know if we'll even end up using that, because we also have to shorten the drive shaft. We'll see how that goes. It's got to be somewhere between 2.5 and 3 inches shorter to use the C6. So I may try to find a drive shaft the right length at the wreckers, or we may try to shorten this, or I may in the end decide to swap the C6 to somebody for a C4, right? And then we'll just use this shaft. It's no big deal. There's a million ways around that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Like I said, that will all happen once we're done with the actual rolling chassis and start fitting the drivetrain to it. Next thing we have to deal with is the front end. This looks like all the original ball joints and stuff. So I ordered ball joints, 4 ball joints, and I ordered upper and lower control arm bushings. So we're going to just replace everything on these control arms and put them back in. I ordered sway bar bushings, sway bar end links. as far that'll get all of that sorted out. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the strut rod bushings for now, because we still got that other frame and it's got all the parts on it. So I'm going to take both of them apart, and if I've got a complete set of decent rubbers, we will use what we've got. And I might get some great big washers and make kind of shims for them, and put a little extra squash on the rubbers so they react, just get rid of some of the deflection. But we'll see about that. They may be fine just how they are, right? I mean, Ford spent a lot of time and money designing this stuff. Who am I to start modifying it? As far as the steering linkage goes, all the stuff in this car seems tight, and all the stuff on the other frame seems tight. So I didn't order any steering linkage between the two cars. There's more than enough stuff to come up with a good, usable, tight set. The steering box itself seems fine. There's no sign of it leaking. So we'll just leave it well enough alone. And as far as the steering pump and the hoses, we'll worry about that once we sit the engine and transmission on it. Because the 351 has a pump on it, and I'm not sure if this one is compatible with it. I mean, I've got all the brackets and everything for this to attach it to a small block engine, but I'm not sure how that's all going to play out. So I do want to replace the hoses, but I'm not going to worry about that until the engine and transmission is sitting there and we know exactly what we're going to do. Same thing with the cooling system. This radiator is probably not really going to be adequate for the 351. And on top of that, I took the cap off and looked in it. The tubes are pretty plugged up, and the bottom outlet is on the wrong side for the engine that we've got. But I've got the radiator that came with that LTD chassis that we've got out the back, and the hoses are in the right orientation on it. And it's a 3-core big rad from an air-conditioned big block car, right? So so long as we could fit it in here, that's probably the rad we're going to go with. I have not charged that to the job yet. Again, until such time that I know that's what we're going to be using. I guess it's possible that we could also use one of these. I think I've got a really nice one of these 302 rads up in the barn somewhere. And we may be able to change the front stuff on the engine and make the hose dump out this side if we had to. But one thing at a time. Next thing we have to deal with is the brakes. These 68 Ford brakes, the rotors are 1 year only. The calipers and the pads, these calipers and pads are 68, 69, and 70, maybe 71, but the rotors are 68 only. Now, and they are hard to find. You can see here it's a two-piece affair. There's a hub, and the rotor's mounted on the back of it, and it uses the lug studs to stake them together. These rotors are really hard to find. They were, right now, the cheapest I can get them is $166, and they got to be shipped from the U.S. I found them in Canada for over $200 for these rotors. So then I started doing some research trying to find out what I could find that would fit. 65 through 67 Galaxie rotors are very similar to this. They're held on the same way. They even use the same wheel studs. But again, they were pricey enough to get up here. They were $80 each. And the problem is, in the current economic climate, the shipping for things that are heavy is through the roof. So as a last ditch, I maybe could have got some of them 67 rotors and tried them. The only thing I found with them really dimensionally different than this is they're a little bit thicker. And I may have had to put them on the lathe and take a few cuts off them just to get them to fit between the, new pads in the caliper. But without having one of them here as an example, or a sample to say, oh, look, yeah, I'm pretty sure we can do this, I wasn't willing to fork out the cash to find out. I also found Unicast. You can use 70 through 72 Ford Unicast rotors. They go right on these spindles. You just have to use the earlier wheel bearings. That was going to cost me about $300 probably for a pair of those rotors. And then I still had to buy pads, caliper kits. The hoses for these are another nightmare. They're literally 1 year only on the Galaxie, 1968. And the same hoses were used from 69 through 71 on Lincoln Continental Mark III. There's not many of them around. There is a couple of things. I found that a mid-70s Chrysler B-body hose, like from a Charger or a Cordoba, would probably work. I would just have to make up a different little bracket for it, right? And we could do it that way. Yeah, all in all, to get the front brakes on this thing done was going to be somewhere between $400 and $500 to use like factory style stuff, which is fine. But I like the goal of this is to keep this project, under $5,000 complete. So I said, let me snoop around some more and see what I can come up with. I took a trip to the boneyard, and you know how I told you at the beginning of this that you had to have a little bit of luck along with your resourcefulness and stuff to get projects like this done. I found a 79 T-Bird in there, which is the downsized T-Bird, same as an LTD2, built basically on the same platform as a mid-70s Torino, or Elite or a Cougar or those kind of cars. And this thing had, it's hard to tell because they've rusty from sitting, but it had new rotors, new calipers, new pads, new hoses, the whole thing. So I looked at it, and these use the 10 3/4 rotor, while the Galaxie in there uses the 11 3/4 rotor. But if you look at most of the disc brake swaps that you buy for these cars, they use this rotor. How they get around with the smaller rotor, it's really thick, and they use a bigger piston in the caliper to basically get the same brake action out of this 10 3/4 rotor as they were getting out of the 11 3/4 rotor on the Galaxie. So, like I said, all the swaps that you buy, there's millions of Galaxies. Well, millions may be a stretch, but there's lots of Galaxies out there driving around with these brakes on them, and they're A-okay. You got to remember, these downsized T-Birds, they were 70s cars with all the fancy interior in them. Plus, they had the 5-mile-an-hour bumpers on them. I looked up the curb weight. The curb weight for that LTD2 or downsized T-Bird, whatever you want to call it, is 4,200 pounds. The curb weight of that 68 Ford convertible with a small block in it is 3,800. So right away, these were put by Ford engineers onto a car that weighs 400 pounds more than the car that's in there. So I've got all the confidence in the world that they'll work. The spindles here are the same height as what's on the Ford. I looked at that car. The control arms were all the same. The sway bar was the same. It was exactly the same front end as what's in that Galaxie, except with these brakes on it. So I said, you know what? This is going to save me a lot of hassle. We'll just put the rotors on the lathe, give them a quick skim, and to clean them up, and this will be good to go. And I got out of the boneyard with all of this stuff for $130 tax in. So that's super. We don't have to buy anything. We literally just have to clean this stuff up and put it on. So yeah, that's our chassis parts pretty much all sorted out. The first thing you got to worry about with your brakes is how to operate them. This is the original old cast iron icky master cylinder. It's a 1-inch bore. All the brakes on this, I'm pretty sure, are all Bendix. So we're going to replace it with an aluminum one. These things are so cheap, and unlike the cast iron ones, they literally last forever. So the one on the car's got a 1-inch bore. I've ordered one. The closest thing I could find was from a Dodge F-body, an Aspen or a Plymouth Valari. It's 1 1/32, I think. So we got that. We're gonna put it on, and I've got so around here, I've got some different ones. I've got a 15/16 one. I've got a 7/8 one. If we want to mess around and kind of tune the pedal, the feel on the pedal. This one is 1 1/8. This is off a truck, and it just goes right on there like that, just like the cast iron one was. I think we might have to shorten this push rod up a little bit, but that's okay. That's easy enough, or we'll completely make a new one. So at the end of this video, you could see $130 for the complete brake assemblies for the front. $389.78 for one rock auto order. $123.48 for the second. $20 for my chrome valve covers. They'll look good on there. I got them on Marketplace. And $48.20 for our brand new brake drums. And that brings us up to $3,239 even. So we've still got just under $1,800, $1,761 to play with. So you know, we'll see how much the engine and transmission suck out of that. Hopefully not too much. So I guess that'll do it for that one. We've gone over it. We've figured out what we need for the chassis. Once the weather gets just a little bit nicer, I'm going to drag the other chassis down here. We'll get the floor pan lifted off it. We'll get it stripped down, everything off it, so it's just a bare frame. And then we'll start doing that. It needs a little bit of metal work done on it in a couple of spots. We'll get that done, and then we'll start building it up. And that'll be really cool when that starts coming together. At some point, we'll also have to get this thing over somewhere and get the body off of it, because we're going to need some stuff off of this chassis, like the rear end and whatnot, all the rear control arms, because when that other one was in the junkyard, somebody took the rear end out of it and they just sawzalled all the control arms. Otherwise, we'd have had a whole nother set of them. And on top of that, they sawzalled the bloody drive shaft. That would have had the exact right drive shaft that we need for this project. It was a 9-inch with a C6, right? Oh, well, what are you going to do? Well, we've overcome higher hurdles than that on the Claremont Classic Garage. We'll figure that out. Anyway, I'm going to go now. I'd like to thank you for coming back all the time and watching what we're doing here. I hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, I'm Kevin, saying so long for now.